Hello, fellow listeners. This is your host, Caleb Miller, and you are listening to InquireCast. This is a podcast designed to inquire into the lives and minds of those individuals who make this world a little more interesting. So please join with me in my lifelong pursuit of always asking questions, inquiring into the interesting people that I meet day to day, and trying to learn more about the ideas and belief systems that these people hold. Thank you for listening. My guest today is Justen Mellor. He is the founder of the annual United We March Foundation, as well as the founder of the Corporal Acel Thomas Not Forgotten Fund. Justen is an advocate for service and uniting local communities for a common cause. I'm pleased to have had the opportunity to speak with him, and I hope those of you listening will find wisdom and inspiration from what he has to say. Justen Mellor, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
It's Mellor, right?
Mellor. M-E-L-L-O-R.
It gets so confusing because I'm Miller, and people would be like,
Hey.
There's a lot of Mellors in the valley, and they're like, are you related to so-and-so? I'm like, no, I'm a Miller. They're like, oh, so you're related to so-and-so? I'm like, no, my family grew up in Millard. And they kind of get disappointed because you're not a local. But, so where'd you grow up, Justen?
Right here in Gunnison.
See, that was, 2 years ago you graduated?
2 years ago. Oh, man. It's been a long time ago. 1991.
Was when you graduated?
Yeah.
So did you ever leave the valley, or have you just stay around?
I went to Dixie for 2 years.
You just got your associates?
Yeah.
Did you go anywhere after that?
I had got married, my first marriage, moved to Spanish Fork, worked at Little Giant Ladders, and then I hated the city.
Oh, I hate
Even
it
though
too.
Spanish Fork, I come home and lived and drove every day up there, and then just got sick of it. And
so you drove up to Spanish Fork every day?
Springville.
Springville.
I worked
so you
in
lived
Springville.
Okay. And then you just eventually ended back up here.
Yep.
You've been at ACT for 7 years, you said?
24.
24?
24, almost on the money.
Oh.
I've worked for the Christiansons for that long.
For that long? I talked to someone, they'd been there for 7, and I'm like, that's a long time. But I didn't realize you were there for that long.
Yeah.
So they didn't even have they were still in Fayette when you started, right?
Yeah, Fayette. The Foot Factory is what it was called.
And did you work with them on that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. I've seen that old building. So Roland's grandson took me to that, and it's neat how small that is than now what they have here.
It's you take a step back and look, and it's amazing what's happened.
So for those of you listening that are kind of lost, we work for a company called Applied Composite Technology, and we build anything from airplanes, helicopters, guns. We work on some classified military stuff. I don't know if I could talk about it, but but it all started out in this small town called Fayette, Utah. And I mean, it's you blink and you miss it. I don't think there's even a gas station there.
Not anymore.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Used to be.
And this guy started it in his backyard, in his back little garage or shed. Yep. And now it's I think a $23 million company, and he's moved it to Gunnison, so just about 5 miles south of where Fayette is. But it's a neat little story. But I feel like, Justen, I'm a couple weeks too late, because I think it would have been good to have you on here to talk about United We March. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So, well, you want to talk about what that is?
Well, oh man, long story, and there's all different facets to it. But we'll hit that is kind of the core right now in my life, other than my family. But we went to the Bataan Death March Memorial in New Mexico, the White Sands Missile Range. So I've always been one of these, patriotic people, and that's all I would ever say. I'm just a patriot. But we went and did this, and there was at that year, 3 years ago, there was over 7,000 participants, and mostly military, civilians, and you go in there and everybody's crammed in shoulder to shoulder. And that's just the people in the field, the starting field. And they have this program before, and there's thousands of people outside of, family members. And they start singing the Star Spangled Banner. and you could hear a pin drop. I was like, oh man, like I'm getting cold chills. Like it was just an amazing feeling. And then we start, and it's a ruck march, and it's to honor the Bataan Death March in World War II, South Pacific in the Philippines. And there are survivors there, and that they do roll call, and it's just amazing. It sat with me like inside.
So there's survivors from that march?
Yep. And more dying every year, and to be a part of that, and along the march you see, and it got hot. It's supposed to be hard, like 106 it got, and I just still remember this lady at mile 12, and we're all, this sucks, and she's got leg braces on both legs and these big walking sticks, and she's just going after it. I was just like, God. It was just, and then I run into this other guy, and I talked to him. I just noticed his shield on it in this flag he was wearing, and I knew it was the Gold Squadron of SEAL Team 6, and I said, God, you look familiar, And I get going off, and I'm walking with this guy. His name is Guy Hurd, and he's one that got me into all this. But I was like, I think that was that last Medal of Honor guy. Was it Edward Byers? And sure as heck, I look him up. I was like, I just talked to a Medal of Honor guy. It's like cool to witness and be a part of something, and to see it all, soak it in. Like I said, it stuck right here. And then the next year, me and Clay had registered my son, and we couldn't make it. My father was sick, and he was he'd actually died, and I was like, I can't go. We could have went, but I was like, didn't do it. And I was thinking, it was such a big part of me. It's like, we got to do one just here. Me, Clay, let's just go walk around here, that day, and march for whoever we want or think, or I don't know. And it started piling on, and people, I was like, all right, let's do this legit. So, it started, and then the name United We March, and got a great group of people together just from this valley, because I knew they'd done a lot of benefits and stuff like that, and they'd already known about how to organize, what to do. What I found out is they have amazing talents, and went above and beyond my expectations that first year. It was awesome. We had a good speaker. We had the program, the dinner and auction. We raised a ton of money last year, and we give to 4 charities based on law enforcement, veteran, first responders, and then the search and rescue. So great experience. It was a lot of great stories. The last 2 to finish, they was 10.5 hours. They never quit.
So how you have a 26 mile and a 13 mile?
It's actually 16-mile half and a 26-mile full.
Okay. So this was inspired by the one they do it in New Mexico, is that what you said?
White Sands Missile Range.
And so when was the first year that you did it here with your son? What year was that?
Last year, so 2018.
So that was the first time you did it
in Utah.
In Utah?
Our own, United We March. We did the Bataan in 2017.
Oh, so this is new. I thought this had been going on for a while.
No, this is our
really new.
Second one just finished.
And how many participants did you have just this last week?
137.
137. Were they all locals, or did you have people
No, we had a lot of different faces. Last year you didn't know there was many sleepless nights. Like, there's only 40 people registered. That's 3 days before, but we had like 80 people register, and so we had a lot of different. We had more teams. We had, we got different. We got 5-man team, individual, full, half. You can do a ruck. You can do heavy ruck, 35-pound pack, or nothing, or a day pack, But yeah, we saw a lot of different faces, and a lot of amazing stories. I get one person complained that a half is 13 miles. It's like, not this one, She's like, well, I'm done. And no, and complaining and whatnot. But then this other story, and she never, she shared it with me, but I didn't know she had cancer. And like, she did it. And the story was so amazing. I was like, that's kind of what this is about. It's like getting through a struggle and finishing, not quitting, you know.
So the lady who complained about it had cancer?
No.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I had one that was perfectly healthy and complaining about it, and, you know. And then on the other hand, you get this lady that's not very healthy, signed up for it, had all the excuses, you know. My sugar was high this day. Great, now I don't have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You find out all these exits to get out of not participating. And she did the half, but she got up and did it and finished. And it was just one of them. And she was very, you know, proud of herself.
Oh, yeah.
So as this has went along, I was like, this is about everybody. Yeah, we're gonna raise some money for the people that do amazing things and sacrifice. But this is about all of us.
So you mentioned that you probably still consider yourself a patriot, but when people would ask you, just say you're a patriot.
Yeah.
So what the root of that patriotism? Like, what is it that makes you patriotic?
Growing up next to my grandpa.
Your grandpa, a pretty good guy.
My grandpa Acel, yeah.
So you mentioned so was did your dad serve?
No,
Military?
this is kind of before all this. My father died when I was 12, my birth dad. And then my mom remarried to the father that raised me, Jim. He was my dad. And he passed away, well, that year we couldn't go to Bataan. So was it 2016? He died at the beginning of 2018. And then the March was after that. So I'm a little fuzzy on dates, but but he was, you know, I'll tell you this, he was the oldest man in the state of Utah, and I don't know what other states, to pass the law enforcement academy. 68 years old.
Your father was?
Yep.
You passed law enforcement academy at 68.
He was a cop at 68.
That's pretty kick-ass.
Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, it's like, and I look back, I was like, you know, he never made excuses. He just, well, this is what I got to do. You know, he'd already retired, and he went to correctional officer at the prison, and they paid for him to, well, I'm going to do it.
How old was he when he passed away?
He was 72.
So was he still in law enforcement when he passed?
Yeah, he had to finally, he got cancer and fought it for 3 years. And then we had a good 3 years.
So your grandfather was the reason, or growing up next to your grandfather was the reason you were patriotic?
Yeah, I grew up with him every day, him and Grandma. And he was a POW.
For what war?
In World War II. So the Germans caught him in Italy, went to 2 different stalags, ended up in Stalag 2B in Poland. And I always heard about these gosh damn cobblestone roads because his feet were awful. They hurt him all the time. And the one day, and Grandma would always talk about this and that and the other, but there's one guy, he was from Utah too, he was with him. His name was Rudolph Blecka. And I remember I had to have been 10, and I met him. You know, my grandpa, he was this fat old ornery guy, you know, that waters the lawn, mows the lawn, you know, just, you know, he taught me a lot, but it's just Grandpa. But I met Rudy at Grandpa's birthday. He come down, you know, I lived next door and went over there, and he just starts telling me that my grandpa was his hero.
And so Rudy was
he was a POW with my grandfather. They did this death march together. Okay. They marched him 600 miles. Was it March to April? Towards the end of the war, the Russian front's coming down course towards Poland. So they took all the French prisoners, shot them. The Americans were assets to them, so they're marching them. And he was telling me, so your Grandpa Ace is my hero. He saved my life. He carried me, gave me his bread. He got me on carts to the next stop when he could, when he was sick. But here's the feeling I got that day. And being at that young, I was like, they love each other. They had a brotherhood and would do anything for each other. And that's what I thirsted after. That's what I wanted. And I told myself, I'm scared to death, but I want to do, I'm going to join the military. I'm going to do, that was what I wanted to do. And I always just life goes on and you forget. And I got diabetes when I was 12, and well, that threw that out the door. But I always remembered that picture still of them two standing together. And it was one of them things in life that didn't touch me till almost 4 years ago.
There's a guy, Viktor Frankl. He had been put on these death marches. He was Jewish though. Man, the stuff that they would do they would make the Jewish and the POWs do. I remember there was one that there was a sign. I think it was Auschwitz that said, I can't pronounce it in German, but it said, "Work and you will be free."
Yeah, work shall set you free.
Yeah, work will set you free, and they'd show up and make them pick up like a 50-pound bag of cement or wheat or something and walk it all the way down to the end of the complex. I mean, these things are huge, and then they'd go drop it off, and then they'd turn and look at the guard, and the guard would be like, "Okay, pick it back up and walk it all the way back." It's like that kind of stuff all day. It's like I think that some of the trials I've got to go through are hard, but like a 600-mile death march, barely any food, probably no water. Probably, so I was in April, you said that you did it? Probably April to May?
Because basically, what was it? In May, the war ended.
So and
it was a bad winter.
Yeah, I think some of these were in the dead of winter. It's like, God. And then they made it out of it and they survived. Like, I don't think my generation could handle that. And that's the other thing. It's I think they called your grandfather's generation the greatest generation. Yep. Yeah, and I really admire the unity that came when America really joined the war after Pearl Harbor, because you don't really see that. I mean, maybe I don't know. I don't know a time in which maybe the Cold War, probably the only thing I can think of in recent history, where we're united against a common foe for a common cause.
Yeah.
Now it just seems like it's everyone's at each other's throat. We all hate each other.
I know.
But so you said you got diabetes when you were age 12?
Yeah. So my dad died in August from diabetes complications, and I got it a month after.
Oh, what's it like being diabetic? I've got my cousin. Is it type 2 or type
1?
Type 1.
I mean,
so
it's
now
independent.
So that's where you're. Okay, what's the difference between type 1 and type 2?
Type 2 you can manage with diet or pills. You're not insulin dependent.
Okay, so my cousin and my aunt and I think my grandfather have type 1 because they're insulin dependent. What's it like?
I've never let it stop me. When I got it, I wasn't really too upset either. I figured, and I remember I was like, well, I seen Dad had it. I guess better mean someone else. I don't know. But I've never let it stop me from anything or let it own me, or I know I can do better still. Even my wife tells me constantly. But it's okay. It's manageable, and I think I'd have been different if I didn't have it.
Well, as you're saying that, I think to what you just said about the you didn't let it kind of slow you down. You just kept going.
Yeah.
And you said that about, what was it, the march? Even if it's hard, you're still going to do it. And that lady with the cancer, even though it's hard, she's still going to do it. But the other lady, maybe she had her own trials, but she got 13 miles and was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
That really strikes a chord with me, because I think too many people rely on the bad things that happen in their life as crutches.
Yeah.
And we talked about this right before the podcast, but so 2016, late March, my girlfriend passed away. Yeah. She had been in a car accident, and I ended up coming across her. She was on her way to my house, and I was like, she's supposed to be here by now. And I had this terrible gut feeling, and I got in my car, drove down a couple miles down the road, found her, which was hard. Then 3 months later, I moved in with my father, and he and I had never really gotten along too well. He had liked to drink, and he worked a lot though. I mean, I barely saw the guy, and so we didn't really get along. We never really had time to get along. I was kind of a troublemaker anyway, so I was hard-headed probably. He and I were equally hard-headed, so we didn't have a really good relationship at first. But then, so him and my mother ended up splitting when I was 17, and he moved out, And I kind of distanced myself from him. But towards the end, we started talking again slowly. And then after my girlfriend passed away, he really came back into my life. And at the probably the pinnacle of our relationship, I just moved in with him. And I was living there for 5 days. And I was on Facebook the other night, and I made these different accounts, so I couldn't. The account I have now, I can't see anything he posted because we're not friends. But I didn't realize my old account was, and so I logged into there, reactivated it, and I was able to look at his Facebook wall. And the night that he died, he said, "There's no better feeling than being able to come home and know your son's sleeping in your basement." And that really got to me, because I was like, it's been 3 years and I had no idea he said that the night he died. Anyway, those were hard. That was some hard stuff. And I remember I fell back onto that as a crutch, both those things as a crutch. I started drinking, started smoking. And I listening through this podcast, I notice I say drinking because I live in San Pete Valley. So those listening have to just get over the country's drawl. I don't know what that is, the slang. So I started drinking and smoking, and I picked up a lot of bad habits, became really reckless, really suicidal. And I adopted this mentality, why the world's not fair. It wasn't fair to me. It was terrible to me. So why should I be any good to it and any good to the people around me and I encounter? And why should I take life seriously? It's so fragile. Why should I take it seriously? I'm probably going to die tomorrow anyway. And I had that mentality. I'm like, I'm just going to die tomorrow. But I started my first year at college, and the entire semester, the fall semester of 2016, I had this mentality I was owed something, because I just had 2 people taken from me. And now I'm in college. Why isn't this already mine? Why are these people not? Why do they know who I am? Why do they know what I've been through? They should just understand. They should just know that I've had this hard life, and man, I gotta miss a week of school because I'm depressed. Well, it's okay. It's justified because this happened. Yeah. And these professors should understand, and which I inevitably didn't do too well that semester. And spring rolled around, and I was there for a month. And I'm smoking dope, I'm drinking, I'm living in my sister's basement, I'm a wreck, man. And I remember I woke up one day, I'm laying in bed, and I had taken a psychology test the day before, and I failed it hard. I'm laying in bed, I'm like, do I really want to do this? I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. And I went back to bed, and I just dropped out. I had always justified it. I'm like, I went through this hard stuff, I shouldn't have to do it. And there's the part where it's like, there was a lot of trauma, and I probably needed some time to figure myself out. But my mentality really was I had this bad thing happen to me, and I'm going to rely on it for everything. And if I'd try and talk to, go out on dates or talk to friends, make new friends, I always kept going back to this crutch. This is going to get me in with these people. This is going to get people to think that I'm interesting because I've went through this. But when the push came to shove and I had to do something hard, and I had to, I tried doing college online several months later, and I'm like, I'm going to be motivated. I'm going to do this. And I started trying to do it, and I'm like, oh, this is too hard. I can't do it because this, my life is hard. I went through all this. My life is meant to be hard. And I eventually realized that was my mentality, man. Because I moved up to the city, and when you said you hated the city, oh, I hate the city. It's too many people. I like people, one-on-one people, but when I get up there and I can't find a parking spot for 30 minutes kind of people, I can't do that. And but so I remember I had went down to Arizona, and I went down there to see this girl, and her grandpa pulled me aside. He's like, "What are you doing with your life? You going to college?" I'm like, I dropped out. And, well, you working? I'm like, no, I'm not working. And I remember I fell back. I was like, and he asked me why. I'm like, well, because this happened and this happened. And I could tell he looked at me like I was like, what are you doing, dude? You're literally not doing anything with your life. You're not pushing yourself to be better because 2 bad things happened to you. Yeah. And I flew back to Utah, and the first thing I did was get a gym membership. I'm like, I'm going to get a gym membership, and I'm going to go bust my ass because I'm lazy. And And then I started studying stuff online, and I about a month and a half later, I realized what I wanted to go to school for. And then, it took some time. It really did take some time to adopt this mentality where I'm like, what I went through shouldn't be an excuse for why life is hard and why I should be catered to.
Mm-hmm.
Life is hard for everyone, and what you go through isn't any better or any worse than what someone else goes through. I mean, everything's different, but it still sucks nonetheless sometimes.
Right.
And the difference between a lot of people that you meet that are like the people who don't want to finish the race because it's too hard, but they might have went through this, in my own story, is they just stay on those crutches. But once you drop those things, it's enlightening, it's empowering, because you're like, I went through this, now I can go through this, I can get through this. And I see that in you, and I know we spoke somewhat about your past, just in passing at work, but when you've got that mentality and that energy about you, that's like, I know you've went through a lot of stuff, but you're still here being a motivational force. You're out walking. You do the 26 mile, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're out there doing the 26 mile ruck, and I could probably get the 2 mile, and I'm like, oh God, Justin, don't make me do this. But so I relate to that, and I really like that message. The don't just fall back on your crutches. Don't let them be crutches. Let them be driving factors. So other than I guess I'll ask the question, other than diabetes and your father passing, other than that, what other big trials have you went through that have really taught you something?
Oh, I think, and I relate a lot to what you just said about, is it kind of a pity party? You want everybody just, poor me. Yeah. Like I went through, so I lost my father, and then lost my grandmother and my grandfather, then lost my mother, and then lost my stepdad. And I was with them a lot. I never communicated, talked, dealt with. I seen them die. I helped take care of them, most of them, especially parents. And it just seemed like, well, that's just how life is, Shit goes bad, and I didn't know, even when Dad died, I was 12, and everybody comes and goes, and then it's, well, that's it. Yeah. I didn't have, I'm sure my mother would have talked to me, but we kind of did, but not really. I never dealt with it. And then adds up. Just go about life. I think until about, honestly, 3-4 years ago, I stated as I was a wandering generality. I was going about business, not accomplishing anything. I was, selfish. I was only worrying about, I love my family. I always loved my family. But I got divorced from my first wife. I had a son. And I had a daughter that I adopted. We had adopted. In my first marriage, immediately met my current wife, Shanna Lee. But still, I'd been drinking a lot, especially after Mom died, and drinking. That was probably, to be honest, I wasn't happy in my first marriage. Nothing, I wish her the best, I really do, but it just, something was missing. Mom died, lost the house I loved. It was my great grandparents' home. Met Shanna Lee, and I was so in love, and she had a son, Caden, and we had a daughter, Kensley, together, but I was still drinking. And then you use stuff that you can't smell, because I'd get called out, and there's so much stuff you can abuse, even off the counters, over the counter. Mm-hmm. I was always dealing with something, coping that way, and she had found some of it, and I didn't even want to talk about it. That's how I dealt with stuff. I was just quiet. And she finally was like, okay, I think you need to leave. I was like, shit, yeah. I mean, as an addict's personality, number one, you're always lying. You're always hiding. You're just, you're there, but you're not there. I left there like, yeah, now, all that is gone. I can just go party it up now. So yeah, I was showing up at work even drunk. I was like, is everybody stupid? They don't even know. And that right there, just to let you know, there's people going through stuff, like people smiling or sad, or they're going through something, because we all hide it very well. And so for 6 months, and also kind of pair it with my dad, Jim, my stepfather was just Jim. That's when he found out he had cancer. So I'm out of the house, I'm using more, and then I move in with him, and we're going through this with him. And also, I'm in the same damn house that I watched my mom die in, and my dad die in, and now my stepdad's dying in it. So what is that? That throws gas on the fire. And everything I used, if a fifth is good, 2/5 is good. If 3 pills is good, 10 is better, Like I always just maxed everything out. I always said I had rock bottoms. I had my rock bottom, and I was up at the U of U cancer with Dad, and I'd got a call from Shanley, and she ripped my ass, and I deserved every bit of it. I had hurt her, and an addict's family goes through it just as difficult. They see it, feel it. And here she is all alone trying to deal with kids, and I'm not there, and I'm doing all this stuff. And I was like, all right, I always planned everything. I planned my use of a day, week, blah, 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 everything, Okay, I'm going to take Dad home. I'm going to go purchase. I did. I went and bought 2/5 alcohol. I had, I think, 15 pills left. I went and bought some over-the-counter stuff that I'm not even going to say, because people find out and they go use it.
Yeah.
Took him home. Dad, I'm going to go to work. And went to the cabin in Fayette. Drank the 5th. Went and talked to a friend that was going to rehab the next day. And I'm drunk. Just, I'm so proud of you. You're doing good. And it's just like such bullshit. It's like, I look at it now and I'm like, hindsight's 20/20, obviously, but I did some bad stuff that night, and kind of keep that personal. I did some bad stuff, and shame was going to kill me that night, and I had planned that. So I get back to the cabin, took all the pills in the bottle, used the over-the-counter stuff, drank the other 5th, because I was weak. Like I was going to kill myself. Like I'd hurt, that shame. It's like there's nothing else. Shame, guilt, just going to be done. I don't want to wake up hungover again. I don't have to start drinking at 8 a.m. just to get to work and feeling better, For 6 months I wake up, just dope sick, hungover, crappy, not waking up again, and I'm better off. So I used all that stuff, got in the truck. I had my revolver right next to me. Drove up the canyon. Like I even knew the spot where I was going to go. Nobody'd find me for at least a while. Yeah, selfish. Stupid. Never thought of how that would make people feel. And and this is just the truth, the last thing I remember is the one turn right in the mouth of the canyon, and that's it. And I woke up in the cabin. Woke up wondering why am I here? I knew I was done. To go from that dark, dark, damn feeling to, and the thing is, yeah, maybe, I think maybe I just turned around. Which obviously something happened, I did. But I wasn't hungover. I was not at all. I was clear-headed. I remembered the things from the night before. In all reality, that was my rock bottom, and it finally come. That's what I needed. And no matter what religion you're in or whatever, the Savior, he was there that morning, because there's not been a feeling in my life that I felt other than that. then stuff started to happen. That was the turning point, the beginning. Because I sat there all day, I even went to work. Like, I should have been so sick. But I was still like, what's going on here? My wife starts talking to me again, and we're going back to church, and here's where I found communication. Like, I went in and talked to the bishop, and what keeps us from communicating? What is it? Is it fear? Guilt? Shame? Everybody's going to think less of you? I worried about hurting other people's feelings, by my actions. What are they going to think of me? What? I don't want to hurt them. But it wasn't. It was like, oh, somebody loves me and wants to help. Somebody's there and has always been there. And then I go talk to my wife, and it was bad. She was crying, but it wasn't what I thought. And we agreed, I'm going to rehab. And I told her, I was like, if I get out of rehab, I promise you, if I can't get better, we're going to get divorced. I mean, she already had papers drawn up. I ended up I had all these rehabs called, and there's full, and I ended up this one, the one guy at this rehab called this guy, and I ended up like I was meant to be there. And I still talk to those people today, but man, when you're looking for help, do you go to veterinarian about, what was it? I heard, you go in, well, my knee hurts, but work on my arm, or you got to talk to people or be around that knows and understands and what you're going through. And my counselor was a recovering addict, and it was just like first week there, I figured, F this, I'll be out in a week. I don't need this. And even my wife had come up, and it wasn't a good, every Saturday families could come, but that wasn't good. But the week after, man, it just went. Like, it was life-changing. Like, totally, I'd never felt anything like that before. And to be around them people, and they listen, and you can share. And I'm telling people stuff that, I've always been quiet. But to be able to communicate, I guess, feelings, everything. It's so healing, and it gave me an understanding. And even when I think I had 3 days left, I finally had earned a day. Well, my wife could come up, and we went out to dinner, but I was just like, can we hurry and get this over so I can go back to rehab? It's like, it was so awesome there. Like,
how long were you in rehab for?
I just did 30, and there's some. I think 30 was enough. Well, it was enough. I wanted to stay longer, and there's some insurance issues and this and that and the other. But I got out, and it was just weird. Like, they're my family, and communicate with some still. Some are okay, some are not.
So since rehab, do you mind asking how long ago that was?
4 years ago.
So have you've been clean since then?
Yeah, 4 years, 4.5 years sober.
So congratulations first off. But so other than communicating, what other things help keep you clean? Help keep your mind clean.
I think this is where Unite We March began, helping veterans, because I was back to work. You're in a safety bubble in rehab. You get out. You're still in that honeymoon period. Life is so awesome now. Like, I went through this amazing rebirth, or whatever you want to call it. But I remember work started to suck again. Like, it's the same shit, different day, literally. And I'm back in the same place. And I remember just sitting there with my head down in my hands, just starting to scrub my head again, like, okay, starting to plan. Like, there's, the thoughts, just because you went through 30 days, there's a lot of that shit's still there. Okay, I'm going to hit the liquor store. I'm going to hide it. How can I hide it? I can't hide that. Well, I'm going to go get some other stuff. And this veteran guy, and he's still to this day, he's like, nah, it was you. But literally, And he was a part of this veterans organization. He had moved from Texas. He's like, hey, he just walks up. And I talked to him a little bit. You want to be a part of this? It's called Oath. We'll call it Oath, Utah. We'll take veterans hunting. And I was like, yes, hell yes.
And this was the same day? Or was it around the same time that you were out?
Yeah, I was probably out 3 months out of rehab.
And about 3 months after, is this where you started kind of feeling like work sucks?
You're back in the real world again.
Yeah.
Man, it just service. It was action. I needed that. Here we go. Here's the seed has been planted. We start doing this. And then we went to the battalion. We helped some veterans out, took them pheasant hunting. And it was just awesome to sit there with these guys. And I'm just a fly on the wall. And all these veterans are talking. And it's like, there's that damn brotherhood that I've always wanted. Like these guys, they knew, they'd never met each other before, but they knew every place in Iraq and what happened. And we had Purple Heart guys there. And it's just like the best feeling to be able to help someone. And then you hear story, most of them have gone through their recovery and both dissipated because of some money issues. And they're still going strong. Don't get me wrong. That guy running that is doing an amazing job. And that's his calling in life. But we did the baton that stuck, and then it's like, okay, here goes United We March, and it has grown to, I'm around these we call all these people heroes. I call them heroes. But the root of them, they're humans. They come back. They need somebody, that knows they care. They need, but we can all sit here and talk about shit. But until we all have, we have some talent, we have money, we have abilities, we have all this stuff. Until we sacrifice at least one of them, we're just talking out our ass. We got to put action into it. And that's true service when you sacrifice one of them things. And that's been the reward is being able to give back to them. And, when I said before it is about helping them, but even if you're a civilian and coming and doing this march, or it's getting like everybody involved in something. Like one of the things we did with the United We March was the Vietnam Veteran Project last May in Farron. And I have this friend, like Brian Young, construction.
I know Brian.
Dude, I was like, dude, you want to help me do this? This guy's daughter called. His dad, he needs help. He's struggling. Vietnam vet. His wife had died almost a year ago, and we go over there and we see this guy for the first time, and he's very quiet. His house the paint's falling off, his roof is leaking, his deck's falling apart, and Brian rebuilt this whole damn deck. Like he just rock started. And then you get people, we get donations, we get volunteers showing up. So all these people show up for this one project. And we seen the guy in the middle when he was working on it. We even got his motorbike had sat in his garage for 4 years. I was like, told his daughter, I was like, I'm going to come and get it. I took it to this TNT in Centerfield. They got the son of a bee running. Like, this was he loved that bike, but he had secluded himself. And the Patriot Guard and Full Throttle, Full Mag got that bike, and they rolled it in there. They all come in on their Harleys, and they rolled it in there. That was like this guy was gleaming. He was so happy to have that bike. And everybody there, it wasn't me, everybody together did this for him.
Yeah.
Ultimate service. And when I left, he had took off on his bike. I was just finishing up, and I'm leaving Farron. I'm like, I know he's around here somewhere. And here he comes. He's all this old gray-haired mustache full, and he's got a grin from ear to ear. I was just like, shit, yeah, this is what it's about. I can never sit still. I can't, I've got to have something, and I know and I've always tried to fulfill something, but this is the only way that's been keeping me good. It's stuff like this.
The uniting people to serve the community, to do something better.
Yeah, just lift each other. Our motto is united in service. Like, like I said, we all have gifts, talents, abilities, treasures. Let's sacrifice some of it. And then it's so fulfilling. Like I got to have it. But I want other people to get that feeling too, so they can pass it on.
As you're talking about this stuff, I keep thinking of not only, sacrificing the time or the money or the assets for somebody else or for a community, but the things that, within our own lives that we need to sacrifice in order for ourselves to be a better person, to feel more fulfilled, to be stronger. And I mean, it's obvious that you sacrificed that lifestyle that you had, and then before you went to rehab, and that strengthened you, that hardened you, that made you a better individual. And there's a few things in my life, it's like that I've tried to sacrifice and do less of, so that I can become a little more, my willpower becomes tempered, a little stronger. But as you're talking, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, I'm thinking, what is it in my life that I could sacrifice and then put that time and that energy and that money into that would better myself or better someone else's life? Mm-hmm. Because there really is no feeling like service. There is no feeling like showing up at, your mom's house and she's out there, digging a ditch in the mud because it's raining. You're like, you just have this feeling like you need to go help her. There's some guy at the store who needs his bags carried out, and he's got his arms full, and he's just some old little bent over guy. Like, there's something about that. Yeah. And I think that's the altruism is such a powerful feeling, and I think it's a very strong antidote to the negative thoughts that we have. So you got a life, Justen.
I don't think my life began till hit that low, to be honest.
And a lot of people don't. I mean, a lot of people hit that low, and they get back on top, and it's like they hit it again. It's sad. I was listening to an audiobook, and this guy said something about a repetition compulsion, where we always go back to the things that are bad for us. I think his reference was abusive relationships, but I mean, I can see that in just any type of lifestyle. It's like, whether you're drinking or smoking or pornography or violence, whatever it is, you can always, even if you leave that, you kind of want to go back to it. And that's kind of why I went as far as to say a sacrifice on your end. But I mean, I definitely find myself with a sacrifice on my end with some things. It's just like trying to cut out the guilty pleasures so that you can feel a little like you have a little more control over your own life. And but it is inspiring to to take that control and give it to somebody else and help them, help rebuild the deck, help. And so it was the same guy that you did the bike for?
Yeah.
That you did his deck?
We did his deck. He's painted his house, so cool. Got his bike running.
So other than, you don't do the hunting with veterans anymore?
No.
And it's just...
doing our own thing and control of it.
So United We March, then you just kind of, whenever something comes up, you just go and help them out? Is that how it is with it?
So the one charity that is new this year is named after my grandpa that I grew up to. Acel Thompson, Not Forgotten Fun.
And did you start that up, or did?
Yeah.
And so is that the only charity that you're?
There's three. There's Utah 1033 is for fallen officers in Utah. UVU Veteran Success Center is obviously the veteran charity. This year, the Wildland Firefighter Foundation is the first responder. And then my grandfather's, which is, I do veteran pheasant hunts. And like I said, I've had people, hey, there's this veteran over here. Hey, there's this guy over here. It's like, okay, we got to have funds. So my grandpa's falls under the United We March umbrella, and we're in control of it, and we can help people out. Not only funds, but we're going to get people involved.
At the end of this, we'll get all the information for all of those, so I can get some links for them so people can find them. But I guess one last thing I wanted to say was that you said you went back to work, and after like 3 months it started to suck. And so I had the opportunity to I didn't work for a year and a half. Well, I lie. So I haven't told anybody this story, so it's kind of, I'm going to be embarrassed when I say it. I think my mom knows, my girlfriend knows, and maybe like my aunt. So when I was living up in the city, I was still smoking, still doing all this shit. And there was this little grocery store. It was called Sprouts, and really great produce. It's like a vegetarian, vegan kind of store.
Mm-hmm.
But they have meat and stuff, but it's pricey, real pricey. But I got hired on as the produce guy. I would stack apples and bananas and peaches and pears, and so I started this job, and just to try and keep busy. And as we talked about before the podcast, when my father died, he left me a little bit of money, and so I could kind of live comfortably without having to work and figure myself out. But instead, I just smoked weed and drank, and so I was like, it'll be good to get some. Discipline myself and go to work, and it sucked, man. Like to get out of that, like you said, the honeymoon phase of just like, oh, I'm doing a little better for myself. I feel so good that I might actually go start working again. And then you get into that scenario and you're like, oh, this sucks. And so I worked at this Sprouts for like 2 weeks, and then I woke up one day, I'm like, man, my life is hard. I don't want to do this. And I didn't call in. I didn't do anything. And I remember they showed up to my apartment like 2 days later, left a note underneath my door. They came back like a week after that just to check on me. And I'm like hiding in there, like paranoid, like, oh, what do these guys want? What do these guys want? So other than that embarrassing moment of me, I never got a paycheck either. I never went back. I felt so embarrassed. It's like how do you confront people like that? Like, yeah, sorry, I just didn't show up. But other than that, I didn't work for a year and a half, and I came back to ACT, and they treated me so well with everything that happened because I was working there during 2016, and so I'm like, I'll come back to this place, and it's a bunch of great people, but after a couple months, I started realizing I'm like, man, this sucks. Like work can really suck, and if you let it suck more than it needs to, it's going to double suck, man. It's like, it's terrible. And I noticed about 6 months into working, my mindset was really negative. And I was to the point where I'm like, this job sucks. This and this and this and this suck about this job. I just got moved to a new department that I didn't want to be in. And they told me I was going to get more money, and I didn't get it. And I'm like, God, this is so terrible. And then my girlfriend's a saint because she's younger than me, but twice as wise. And she's like, maybe it's your the way you're looking at it. I went from this mentality of all these things are out of my control, and life is just throwing me hardball after hardball, and then a curveball. And I went from that mentality to thinking, even in the simple things like 5 to 9 work, you really have an impact on your perception of how your day is going to be and how you're going to handle these things. And I mean, I can't even count how many times I've been sent into work thinking like, man, I'm going to need to go home after this weekend, sit down and, have a hard drink and just sit back and watch TV. But it does take a lot of discipline to get home, that Friday night and think, it's not that bad. Like, I'm going to try and do something for myself. And then when you go on Monday, you just push as hard as you can to try and improve the workplace instead of being another casualty of it. So I think there's a lot of people at that company that have accepted their fate, that it's, and they believe that their fate is they're stuck there. And, it really isn't the truth. It's, we do have I think there's a good minority of people there that somehow have the energy to try and make it better. And I mean, it does cost some energy, and you're definitely one of those people. And it was a lot of people at work that were like, you need to get Justen on there. You need to get Justen. And we talked before, but like, I haven't seen you have a bad day. And you are the only guy at work that I remember that I can think of having like an 80-pound slab of metal just slam into your shin, and you just walk it off. Like, I was like, this guy's not only inspiring and inspirational, but he just got, he can take a beating. Because if that would have been me, man, I'd be like 2 weeks out.
The physical stuff's easier to deal with than the mental.
Oh,
emotional.
Oh, it is. It's I mean, I would take I've got prostatitis, man. I'm 24 years old. And my prostate's like the size of an 8-year-old man, and like I would still take that. Waking up 3 nights to go to the bathroom, 4 nights to go to the bathroom. I'd take that over like all the emotional stuff any day, because it's like you can take a pill and you can eat right and exercise and feel a little better, but when it comes to the the withdrawals, or whether that be from anything, the porn, the drugs, the just the withdrawals from wanting to sit on the couch and do absolutely nothing and waste your life, it's like that's a hard thing for some people to manage and overcome, and it'll take you under if you let it.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But well, Justin, we've got all the time in the world, but is there anything else that you want to let people know? Anything you want to talk about?
I think, and just as you was talking, when you come back, I remember when you was at work before, I could tell you was struggling, and I knew some things you'd went through, and in fact, I was talking to Andy Hill about this today, and when I seen you come back this time, there's a different Caleb, and I don't think I talked to you before, but you were very open to talk to, and I think communication is one of the most important things, and this is for all ages. And there's, as you've stated, we can be in that dark thing, and shame and fear, guilt, hurting other people keeps us from communicating, and I think that's part of some of the suicides and people not getting through stuff. I think we have to become comfortable about talking about uncomfortable and being vulnerable, because there's somebody that wants to listen and help and start that conversation. It will lift your burdens and start to heal, because no matter what anybody's done, there's somebody there that loves you, everyone. And we all have to act and help each other out too. Don't just sit there and wait. I think action, social media, things are pasted all over about, I'm always here, I'm always there, anytime. You know what? Go out there and be that kind person, help, lift, give a person a ride. Communication is key. And let's not be afraid to do hard things. There's a saying, and you may have heard of it, quit skipping the effing struggle. Embrace it, learn from it, and grow from it. We go through hard things, and everybody out there that just went through hard things, whether it be addictions, abuse, anything like that, once they get through it, guess what they're doing? They're helping others through the same stuff. So grow from our mistakes, learn from them. Well, like I say, we all have that talent and ability, and I'm very proud of you for what you're doing, and I love this stuff, and keep kicking ass, taking names, brother.
Hey, thank you, Justin. It was nice having you on. Hello, fellow listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Just as an afterthought, I'd like to list the charities and the foundation addressed in today's podcast. For more information, you can check out UVU Veteran Success Center, Utah 1033 Foundation, Wildlife Firefighter Foundation, Corporal Acel Thomas Not Forgotten Fund, and lastly, for more information about United We March, please go to Facebook and simply type in United We March. Thank you.